and record it. Okay, before you go there, okay, we did a little recap earlier about my sports guys is not here, my DJs are not on, but we talked a little about the music. And Mike and I was talking about the halftime and the backlash that they got because now others feel that our people shouldn't have got the acknowledgement that they got during the halftime. So now I'm hearing they said, well, maybe next time we'll have the heavy metal and that kind of music. So in my opinion, they're always trying to put us in the back burner or outdo what we do. I'm just saying. Okay, so before you start, Mr. Talbot, I just wanted to mention, since I'm that girl, the reason why the topic for the orgasmic, hold on a minute, is because, with the men, right, they do Viagra, Cialis, and they said that it causes heart attack in men, right, possibly. So with women and also with men, they have this orgasmic headache. So anybody, you don't have to answer. That's your personal business, though. Ever have headache during or after sex?
Interesting.
Just okay. So that's caused because of the blood vessels in the brain. Okay, it dilates during orgasm, and it can also cause blood clot, which goes to the brain. That also could cause death. So you talk about death, possibly catching a heart attack, because when you got a Mike, you're making that face when the blood clot travels very fast, especially to the head. So that's the reason. So you could have brain aneurysm, and back to the Cialis and all these says heart attack in men. Those are all enhancement. So with that, if both parties die, the men with the Cialis, women, male with the headaches, and you have your partner left behind. Did you prepare for that? Even though death could happen at any time, but are we prepared for our demise? So, with that, a little bit of information, Mr. Talbot is going to talk about being prepared.
Wow, we going from here to over here. Let me see
Well,
if I can. Let me
but
see if I
but
can swim in the water here.
but listen, but you are because you're telling them what happens if they're not
Yes,
prepared, correct?
yes. No, this is good. This is good. This is another reason too why I love this program because it's that tough talk. But in all seriousness, and I appreciate that. Really, we could use that as a preface because I don't know how many of you saw Color Purple. And in the movie Color Purple, when she got married, was it Celie that had got married, and father was a preacher, and he didn't really agree with it. But anyway, she said, "I's mad now." But then came later and say, he died, and why? And it was during supposedly that moment. And the
Correct.
point being that that's why I appreciate the prelude that you gave was for the fact is this. None of us are, there are two dates they say that we're not in charge of. That's the date we're born and the date we die, unless you do something that's not biblical. But anyway, but we do have a lot to do with the in between those two periods. And so one of the key things is, and I'm just going to give you a little overview. But how many of you remember when we all were doing the Kwadanka, Jasmine Bozeman? How about it was said that he didn't have a will, but he kind of did, but it wasn't updated. And so many others, including our Queen Aretha Franklin. You know what I'm saying? And
Correct.
and
Correct.
Michael Jackson. I mean, what I'm sharing is public knowledge. It's so having a lot of money does not necessarily mean we got everything together, but it's a piece of paper. And I'm not talking going to, back in the day, we used to call it the five and dime store and go write up something, have somebody say, go do a video. That's wonderful, but you need to have a legal document and make certain that it's updated. But let me just talk about when I say legal documents. First of all, I'm talking about a will. A will says, what do you want to happen when, after you make your demise, you pass away? What is it? And we usually call it your love letter that goes 6 feet under, meaning you still in control, even though you're 6 feet under. And with that being said, is because there was a situation, and tell you why this is so important. Again, I got to go back to this SpiceIslandQueen, because she talked about what happens if two people are together and they're not married. I know of a situation, I won't mention the exact, I definitely won't mention no name because it might be your cousin, but there was a situation, this one professional had a significant other and kept procrastinating. I'm going to get the will done. I'm going to get it done, get it done. Short story long is this: the individual passed away, but had not finalized the divorce from his former spouse. And because he didn't do that, because he didn't have a will, because he kept using that big letter P, procrastinating, guess what happened? He died one night. The ex-wife came back to the house the next day, didn't even knock on the door, just opened the door, get out my house. So a person who went from comfort went to homeless, being homeless overnight, just because why? They didn't have the will in place. Then the other part to having the will, what if you have a blended family? How do you want the children to be taken care of? There are situations we know of. The other side of the family didn't really like that other side of the family. So what happens? Somebody passed away, plus there was no insurance. And by the way, can I add this little nugget? Google has never been an insurance company. And rather, GoFundMe has never been an insurance company, and Google has never been a law firm. So it's important for you to have the right professionals, the right type of document, and to have somebody who you want to be in charge, called executor or executrix, to make certain that your wishes are carried out. Now, I talked briefly about the will. There's also something called a healthcare proxy and a medical director. What do you want to happen? Or I'm talking to the audience that's listening and watching. What do you want to happen, God forbid, if you become incapacitated, unable to respond for yourself, can't write, can't talk, can't even hardly move? Who do you want to make decisions for you? And I always say this because usually in these kind of moments, it get kind of a little tensy here. I say you never want somebody who dislike you to be in charge, because they'll say, pull the plug, and you be trying to, no, 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 pull the plug, no, 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 no. So, but you can't respond for yourself. So you want to make certain that that happens. Plus, for all the parents that have younger children, especially 18 or older, I know they're your little darlings, that you still love them. You need to have the proper documents in place in the event children become incapacitated. I don't know how many of you recall years ago, the young lady, I believe was California, happened to be from the African American community, whereas she was in a comatose state. Because there was no document between the medical practitioners, the hospital, and the family, there was discussion. Well, we pulled the plug. No, we want to keep on. We believe it. And I think she went on like another 5 years, 7 years, somewhere along there. And don't quote me on the name, but I can get it because I save files. But long story short, had there been a legal document in place, even children, yes, even children, what do you want to happen if your child becomes an incapacitated? Just recently, we learned that this child was 18. This particular child, won't mention the names, child was 18, was in during COVID. The mother went in to say, we want to exhaust all options. The hospital says, well, we're short. We're going to do what we need to do. They said, no, no, no. Here's what the medical facility asks. How old did you say your child was? 18. Well, guess what? You have no rights. No, my screen didn't freeze. I just wanted you to digest that. Because why, ladies and gentlemen, we're so busy. We're more busier now than we ever been. It's like hectic, just keep going. And sometimes we overlook these essential items. That's why I'm so appreciative about this discussion. Yes, it's a tough discussion, but you need to have it. Because why? Some people feel, well, why I got to talk about life insurance? Why I got to talk about the will? You think I'm going to die? Well, all of us going somewhere sometime. We just don't know when. But wouldn't it be wonderful to know that your children, your spouse, your significant other don't have to fight over a broken TV because you took care of business? And ladies, yeah, I know they say on the mortality table that women live longer than men. That's why the life insurance is cheaper for women and health insurance is cheaper for men because they think women are going to live longer. Maybe. But guess what? Everybody still need a will. You need a healthcare proxy, medical director, durable power of attorney. And one last point, I'll turn it over for any questions, is let's say you're in New Jersey. You relocate to North Carolina or California. If that occurs, you need to have your will updated because every state law rather, is different. So with that, Miss SpiceIslandQueen, I turn it over to you for any questions. You're on mute.
Okay, I know you. My question is, and I just look at, for example, I'm going to use DMX, and even though he had a child with someone, they have a battle right now where she can't really get anything for that child. So you probably would, so in that case, I guess that would be a lawyer's question. But I was thinking that's why it's important to have things in place, especially for women who have children with men that you're not married to or you live together. And, like you said, the other party may not like you, so they, as being spiteful, they prevent you from getting anything, even though you have a child that's related to them.
And to that point, that's a very good point. Again, ladies and gentlemen, I am not an attorney. I look like one. But this, that was a free one there. but, but in all seriousness, that's so true. Not only DMX, but like I said, look how long James Brown, look how
That's
long
right.
Michael Jackson, look how long Aretha Franklin. Money was no issue. No, money was no issue. But it's who are the professionals that you have around you to give you the correct guidance that you need.
Um, so I know a lot of people would probably say, well, I can't afford life insurance or to get a will, have it prepared. So what would you say to someone that says, I can't afford?
Excellent question. Excellent question. Sometimes it's not who you know, but what you know. And then sometimes it's not what you know, but who you know. Getting with the right professionals. And that's what we like to do. It's not about a sale for us. we want to educate. We want to educate people. Number one, why do you need a will? What's the purpose of it? And to your point, some people feel that they can't afford it. And they said, well, I don't have nothing. I said, well, look at the clothes on your back. That's an asset. See,
I don't think we think like that.
No, why? Because TV, movies, the furs, the nice cars, nothing wrong with that. That's what most people consider an asset. No, it's really not only just our clothes. Ready for this? You are your most valuable asset. We insure our homes. We insure our cars. Why not insure ourselves?
Right.
And then to your question about affordability, this is why we like to educate. Business Resource Connector LLC, that's my company. We like to educate people. Here are your options. You may not be able to go for the Cadillac back in the day, but Michael, the Cadillac, right? That was kind of like the big car. You might have to start off with a Volkswagen. You may have, I'm just using terminology. I'm dating myself, y'all. But you might have to start small, like this with a buying a home. Yeah, I want a 4-bedroom, 3-car, 5 acres of land, but I need a starter home first. So let's talk about building a starter program to get you the initial document you need, and then you can always add up.
Okay. Question. I see like there's some of these online that says come online and you can do your will online. How effective are those?
Well, we say it like this. Even and that's a real good question, a good point too. A lot of people even tried to start a business online, but guess what? The state that you're in, are those documents in compliance with the state law? The form that you're filling out online, who's going to view it to make certain that it's in compliance with the state that you're in? Again, Google is not a law firm, and GoFundMe has never been an insurance company.
I know we tired of seeing those on Facebook, GoFundMe. I mean,
Yes.
it's really not our responsibility to bury your loved ones, that's your responsibility.
Yes.
Okay.
I see a
Okay.
hand over Ava.
Yes, I have a question. Did I hear you correctly when you said that when you go out of, I guess, the state that you originally executed a will or put a will in place, that you have to update it? Is it because it's not honored because you're in another state, or how does that work?
Good question. Excellent question. You always have some great people. I won't use the term not honored, but there may be some. I'll give you an example. New Jersey and Pennsylvania are 2 different states. Pennsylvania is known what they call a common law state. I won't go into too many details on that. But, and this is what an attorney said, so I'm not making this up. When you go to another state, you want to make certain that the will that you have will stand up in court, God forbid something happens. So that's why it's always recommended that you have that will reviewed, and if necessary, have it updated.
Yeah, that's true if you had it for a period of time. Okay, I understand now. Thank you.
You got it. Great question. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
Yes.
It's I've heard of the will, yes, but then this trust. What is the difference?
That's a great question. I'll give it to you this way. You own properties, you own assets. You can literally put, and I'm, again, not an attorney, but I can give you what I know. You could put those items in a trust. Now, there's different types of trust, so I'm not going to go into all the ramifications, but I can get you to the resources that you can get that answer. But the trust has a way of safeguarding. I'll give you an example. When a person passes away, that they might have X number of dollars. Well, the Rockefellers, I won't mention the other names, but Kennedy's, though I can mention their names, they all had trusts for their children. So a lot of their millions of dollars, I won't necessarily use the word avoid tax, but they deferred tax in a lot of ways. Again, talk to a tax consultant and a tax attorney on the specifics. But a trust is different from a will, but it's a part of your overall estate planning. So that's a great question. Appreciate that, sir.
Okay, okay, I once worked for this family, and she had said that they, how should I put it? Put money in a certain fund that when they pass away, the kids does not have to pay taxes. It's called like a hideaway, so to speak. Um, do you know anything about that?
Well, let me just put it like this. That's why it's good to have certain professionals that you have access to and find out what resources are available.
Okay, makes sense.
Now, when
Right.
one is doing this, is it good that you speak to your kids or even your mother, father? Let's say, when I hear a child who is caring for his or her parent, they make a, like how does that happen? How do you incorporate that to make a will for your mother or father?
Can you just give me a little clarity on that? Are you saying the child
They
making the
taken
will?
care of, like they taken care of. So therefore, it's not so much as your mother, father have will for you, but now you know that you are taking over their personal living quarters and things like that. If they're in a homeless shelter, a nursing home, things like that, can you then take a will out for them?
That's a great question to ask the attorney.
Oh,
yeah, great question to ask the attorney. But I will tell you from this perspective, so I appreciate that question. Personal situation. My grandmother was 2 months before when she passed away from being 97. She had the will, the healthcare proxy, the medical directive. When she passed away, my sister was noted as her executrix. We didn't have to make a will for her, but hers was already done. So what happened was the DNA was do not resuscitate. When you're in the hospital, do you want, that's a part of that medical directive. Do you want them to resuscitate you, bring you back, use artificial means or whatever like that? Or do you just say, forget it, I don't want to be a vegetative state, whatever. That document's work. That was in place. So all the hospital had to do, follow what the document stated, and everything was done. Second scenario, I had an aunt. My grandmother was in the hospital. Notice the facilities, all right? My aunt, though, was in a nursing home. My sister, was the same, might say something? Oh, yeah, she was in a
I'm
nursing.
sorry, I'm gonna interrupt you. I just went, I know those scenarios. I'm sorry.
Yeah, oh no, I appreciate it. Thank you. She was in a nursing home. First, grandmother hospital, aunt nursing home. Well, my sister, who was her was her executrix, gets a call from my mother. Why? The nursing home couldn't get my sister, so the next person online was my mother. They called my mother. My mother knew how to reach us, so she was able to speak to my sister. After we hang up, now I'm sharing this, hopefully it'll help somebody. My sister asked me the questions. They got the DNA. How come they call me? I said, put the brakes on. I said, because she was not in a hospital. She was in a nursing home. nursing homes is not really a medical facility like that of a hospital. So they have protocols that they have to follow before they can make any type of decisions. So I just want to give those two type of scenarios. So, but I know it's a roundabout way of your question, but so what would happen in your situation, they need to preferably have the documents in place before being placed in those facilities, because none of us know, and it's not just because of older age, there are young people who are going into those facilities as well, and they need to have the documents in place. So I hope that helped. But what I will also do, SpiceIslandQueen, is any of your listeners, your audience, I will be willing as my gift to you and to your audience to do a 15-minute consultation at no cost to them, just to educate and give them the tools. And if they see something of value, of something we may have in our portfolio of services, we could have that discussion. But that would be my gift. And I'll put my link, a calendar link in the chat.
Okay.
And y'all need to thank Mr. Royster because he prompted me to do this.
Yeah, because there's just so much that we don't know, and then when the time comes, we have to try to figure out things on our own, and sometimes you get misinformation.
Yes.
Mr. Tolbert,
yes.
My other question, or my other part to that, when you mentioned the nursing home, is that whatever assets you have when you go into the nursing home also get converted over. So that's something a lot of people don't know.
Mhm.
They take over your income and everything, your assets,
right.
everything. Mm-hmm.
That is an excellent point. And I was hoping I could have went out the back door before that came up. Let me tell you why, and I appreciate that question. This is why, again, SpiceIslandQueen, to thank her for having this platform. We encourage people, and I know this is not a part of the overall discussion, but since it came up, I'll just bring it out.
Feel free.
Long-term care policies. And now they have life insurance policies that have living benefits that can help in those situations. When what you mentioned, Miss Ava, I know of a situation just recently where they had to, what they call, draw down on all the assets. And watch this, they have what they also call a 3 to 5 year look back. So they know that people trying to move money away. But again, go to what SpiceIslandQueen said, there are some places that you can do certain things. That's why you want to have a conversation. I have a team of people that I work with that can help out in certain situations. I'll put it like that. But thank you so much, Xavier, for raising that eyebrow.
Yeah, no, I was gonna mention that because I know an instance with that happened, that the family loved one was in a nursing home, and the estate took everything. The bank account was cleared out, and put a lien on the house, and it became a problem.
You can't fight it once they. And the sad thing is, I've known a situation where people went in for just say like 3 weeks, or that's it, and they still had access to all of that.
They still do it.
3 weeks. Yep, for 3 weeks. Property in the South, bank accounts, everything. They had a lot of property too that was taken.
Correct. Yeah. The first thing they do, actually, they freeze your bank account so you can't touch a penny.
Yeah. But as Mr. Tolbert said, there's one way to get around that one. So I'm going to call you for sure, Mr. Tolbert, because I know how some people got around that one.
Mr. Talbot, can you put your information in the chat, please?
Yes, I'm ready to do that now. I'll put that in.
Okay,
now.
good.
Yes.
So when would be a good time to talk to your kids about, well, because some people don't want to discuss that, as we hear the disturbed ones hanging around a little too long. If that's something that, is there ever a good time? No, you don't discuss that? Okay.
No, I wouldn't say discuss it. No, it needs to be discussed. Because why? We need to, again, so I can tell my story so nobody can blame me for, he told my business. I'm the oldest of 8. All right. Parents was from the South. But I had a father and a mother, good people. My father, though he wasn't privileged to go what they call higher academia, but he was a smart man. He had a will, healthcare proxy, and a medical directive, and ready for this, remember I said 8 children plus a wife. Watch this. Because he had everything in place, when he passed away, I mean, this guy, I love him dearly. I mean, love him dearly. He had things so set that all the 8 children were able to write letters to him. He had letters written to all of us, and he was able to hear our letters read, and we were able to read his letter. Why? He had everything in place. So we told people, when you see us crying at his life celebration, it wasn't because we were sad. It was because we were rejoicing, knowing that we spent quality time with my father. Oh, the part I need to bring in, guess what? It's like something he knew. He says, I want to go on vacation with all of my family. We all revamped our schedule, went on a whole week's vacation with him. And it was like 2 weeks later is when he passed away. I shared that again, not to highlight death, but to let you know the importance of having documents in place just in case.
Can everybody put their email address in the chat, please? So if you didn't get the information from Mr. Talbot, I can send it to you.
Good to see my buddy, Mr. Husband's on.
You're muted, Mr. Husband. Okay. Anybody else have any questions
Good
for
evening.
Mr. Talbot? Good evening. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Yourself?
Very well.
Apologize for my
Now that we get,
tardiness.
I'm sorry. No, I figured this is your season. This is your
Actually,
season.
it wasn't because I had a doctor's appointment, got in just about walked through the door at 8 o'clock, and a client called and got into a discussion for the next 45 minutes.
Okay.
So,
All right. Anybody else? Just make sure you put your information in the chat. Okay, so I can send you Mr. Talbot's information. Anybody have any questions that they want to ask?
Where's Mr. Talbot located?
We can't. JJ, you sound far away.
Can you hear me?
Somebody said, where am I located?
Yeah.
I have a home office in North Jersey, but because of virtual, I'm able to service my clients across the United States. I'm currently in 20 states, my team and I.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Husbands is a part of my team.
thank you, sir.
So Mr. Husbands don't have any questions because he knows it. He got all the information firsthand, right?
No, I just joined, so I don't know what transpired, so I can't question what I didn't hear.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Oh, you guys got all the knowledge now, right?
You're a sole practitioner?
I'm sorry?
Could you hear me this time? Could you hear me?
Yes.
We
now I
can't
can.
hear you. Okay.
Could you hear me now?
Better.
Okay.
Must be AT&T.
Is he a sole practitioner?
Who, myself?
Yes.
Oh, no, I have my company, good question. My company's called Business Resource Connector, LLC. I'll put that in the chat too, so you have it. But I have a team that I work with over 50 people. Yeah.
And you're located in Jersey?
Yes, that's correct. But I'm able to practice my business across the United States. Certain states require me to have a license, but I got that taken care of as well.
Good.
And also, Miss Spice Island Queen too, any person that has a business, I might as well throw this in the pile. I'm doing a presentation this coming Saturday. Please, ma'am, please, sir, let business owners know they need to have a succession plan. Succession.
So for those who don't know what that means, and the ones on Facebook, could you explain that, please?
Sure. Just like with a will, what do you want to happen after you pass away? Well, what do you want to have with your business? What if your spouse does not have experience in that particular, let's say you got a manufacturing company. Let's say you have a tax accounting firm. Let's say you even have a law practice. What about your spouse? Do they know the business? Can it come in? And you got other shareholders. How does your role fit in? You know, what if you're the senior partner? What if you're the president? You know, so these are key things that I'm encouraging, not only just businesses, but nonprofits, churches, nonprofit organizations. Please get a succession plan. I've seen too many horror stories about not having that document in place, and the people who thought they was next in line end up, there was chaos. So that was a free one for you tonight.
I guess it's the same as a person passing away, but without a will, it causes chaos in the family.
Yep, exactly.
Yes. Okay. Anything that we didn't ask that you'd like to share with us? They don't have to be anything they have to pay for service. I believe that you have to pay for information, certain information. You all got a lot of free
Right?
info tonight.
How long have you been in business?
Over 30 years. I know I look like I'm only 28, but yeah, I've been on 30 years.
Yeah.
Oh, you started 2 years before you were born.
Yeah, listen. I told you my father had things set, you know. Yeah.
So you were the succession after your father.
Good point. Okay.
Mhm.
My father was a pastor of a church, but I also pastor a church. But he had a succession plan that my sister would take it over. So that's why I could talk, you know, confidently about this. So, but we worked well together. So she kept it for stayed 10 years, had the succession plan in place, and got another pastor in. So, and then we went through a 2-year process of the vetting and the whole thing. Yep. So that's how it worked. And guess what? I didn't have to get upset or mad, even though I was the oldest. I said, no, my father put all of this in place. We knew this before he passed away.
Okay. I have a question here. Someone asked, what is the likelihood that it becomes successful if a family member contests the will?
Ooh. Tell them they need to meet with me and I can help them get that answer.
Hopefully they heard that because they watched. Okay, I'm going to see. This is one of the not free info. Okay, all right. Okay. All right, the next question here says, oh, You mentioned that everybody knew what's in the will. They thought that you don't know until the person's deceased.
Okay, if I understand the question, whoever the caller listener is,
Yeah.
you can definitely make an appointment. But let me say this. Mr. Royster actually started it, and it was this way. When do I tell a child? When do I tell whoever? Normally, when you're putting the will together, again, talk to attorney, disclaimer. When you're putting the will together, you don't want to put it in a newspaper that this is what I got, this is what I want, boom, boom. You're only going to tell a couple of trusted advisors. One, definitely the attorney need to know because they're going to be the one drafting the will. Your financial professional that's close. I'm not just talking about your financial planner, but also your tax preparer. Who's that person, your trusted advisor? And then who do you want as your executor, executrix? You know, male, female, you know, it's logistics. So whatever way you go, those persons need to know, and they need to know where is it located. I recommend to all of my clients have hard copy, electronic copies. Okay, hard copy and electronic copies, because God forbid if the house burnt down or the office for some way, even whatever happened there, at least you got an electronic copy and you can you know, print it out another copy. But you want to make those key people, and if you're married, of course, your spouse needs to know, and it's encouraging that both spouses or have a will done independently. What we do with our company, we make certain that if they are married or significant other living in the same home, we make sure that both of them understand they need to get a will, and we help them with that process.
So let me ask you this, since I came late, just wanted to ask you a question about yourself. What is your title?
My title?
Yeah.
I'm a business resource consultant.
Business resource consultant. So,
Yes.
but tonight we're just talking about wills.
That's just the subject that Miss Iris Speaks she suggested on tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a whole portfolio service, but guess what? If you schedule some time with me, you go on my website, you can see other services, because that's the other thing too. As I mentioned, I have a lot of strategic partners such as Mr. Husband that I work with. I have business funder, I have people that do business credit. So I have a whole tractor trailer, but I don't think you want me to back it up to your house right now.
So put your information.
I will do. Okay.
That's why I wanted everybody to put their email address there so I can send you the information so you can get with Mr. Talbot, make an appointment to talk to him about your individual situation or information that you need. Okay. All right. Somebody said they was under the impression that there's only supposed to be one copy of a will.
Well, again, that's a question that I'd be able to talk with our attorneys on, but I will say this. What if you lose that one copy? What if it gets wet? What if it gets burnt? Because either way, and that's a good question, just not to be sarcastic, regardless to whether you have the copy, one copy or 5 copies, you're going to need to have it notarized. And let me tell you something else, another story. The situation, the children kept, Mr. Royce, watch this. Children wanted the mother to get the will. All right. Kept procrastinating. She finally completed the will questionnaire. The attorney drafted it. Watch this now. But she was away. So by the time she got back, she took ill and passed away. Guess what? The will was null and void because why? It had never been notarized and witnessed. Procrastination costs you dearly. You know.
That's true. Even without being demised, it does.
Yeah.
A business deal or a relationship, anything.
Yep. So I trust that I was a value add tonight, SpiceIslandQueen, my friend. And
Oh, most certainly. Here comes
Yes.
the attorney.
Good night, everyone. How are you?
We all are wonderful. We're patiently waiting your info. Thank you very much for joining us.
Absolutely. I am Adelola Dow, and I am a matrimonial and family law attorney, native of Brooklyn, New York, but I practice in Staten Island and in New Jersey. I've been licensed for 15, going on 16 years, and exclusively doing matrimonial law.
Mute your background, please. Okay, sorry
And so
about the
I have
interruption.
a private practice in Staten Island and practice exclusively matrimonial law and anything baby mama, baby daddy drama, including domestic violence and all of that type of stuff, child support, child paternity, all of that. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for extending the invite.
Oh, we're glad to have you. Okay,
all right. Well, I'm going to pass the baton to Attorney Adelola, and I would like to spend some time with her. So can you arrange an introduction for us? And I know that your audience is going to be floored when they hear the information come from this young lady. So you all
yes,
have
they will.
you all have
Yes,
a wonderful evening, and I thank you for everything, and we'll be talking later. God bless.
Okay, thank you for joining us and thank you for the information.
You got it. All right.
Okay, so first, what would you like to share with us before you get the questions?
Well, we had talking about how do you know when and what to do first, right? So
Right.
I think that the advice is different for men, for women, for custodial parents, for non-custodial parents. You know, when you know that you want to get a divorce, the first thing that you don't do is run out and tell your spouse. Okay. The first thing that you do is, first of all, if you're a Christian or if you are a spiritual person, you believe in some higher power, you sit with yourself in that higher power. You figure out exactly what it is that you want before you then move out and go to an attorney. Even if you're not going to hire an attorney, let's say that you say, you know what, we don't want to be bothered with attorneys, but I just want to know what my rights are. Know what your rights are before you start negotiating deals with people. Because when you don't know what your rights are, you have no idea as to what it is that you're negotiating away. You could be negotiating away a pension that you had an entitlement to, but you have no pension benefits of your own. And now you're left out there after 20, 30 years married, and you have no way to support yourself once you retire. You could be negotiating away a home that you said, oh, well, the house belonged to her when we got married. Okay, but was there refinances done on the house? Did the wife put any money into the house? There's all kinds of things. So I think that the first thing anybody needs to do is sit down with an attorney who they've gotten some type of rapport with, whether it's by referrals or by watching people's stuff on YouTube and doing some research with it. Don't confuse Google with a law degree, though. So don't have it be that you started looking at Google and Google told you you weren't or you were entitled to something. Don't confuse it with a law degree. Sometimes people say, oh, but I don't want to pay for the consult. Well, I'll tell you, in my experience, the consults that you pay for are actually strategy sessions where you could gain information. Some of the consults that you don't pay for, oh yeah, sure, I could help you. What does that mean to you? You don't know what the help looks like. If you are the spouse who makes the most money, don't just immediately run up out of the house. Because when you immediately run up out of the house, what you've done is you've created for yourself an obligation to possibly pay for not only your household that you moved to, but the household that you left. So these are key considerations, especially in New York and New Jersey, which is where I'm licensed, that you want to think about. I'm ready for the questions though, so go on.
So now you're an attorney, or you're an attorney.
Yes, this will be my 16th year of practice in
So
both
now-
states, New York and New Jersey.
So now your practice is primarily, it sounds like it's primarily matrimonial.
It's exclusively matrimonial and family law. That is all I do. I live, eat, sleep it. That's all I do.
Okay.
And that's important. You know, you don't want to, with any type of law, right? You know, you're not going to go to a cardiologist in order to fill your tooth, right? So, you know, sometimes people will say, oh, but I know my cousin is a lawyer. My cousin does criminal law. Look, if I go into a criminal courtroom, everybody's going to jail. So, you know, so even though we all take the bar and this, that, and the other, it's important to go to somebody who is, who's practiced and specialized in what it is that you want, whether it's real estate or matrimonial, so on and so forth.
Yours is matrimonial only.
I do all family law except for adoptions and neglect.
Ah.
Okay. All right. So earlier we were discussing like some of these celebrities who don't have a will, they have children, and they're deceased. So I guess I would ask, what repercussions do they have to make sure that the family allow them whatever care that they need financially for that child that they sons or whoever left behind?
You
And
know
I'm
what?
going to use,
Who are you going to use you're going to use somebody as an example?
I was going to use like DMX is the last one as an example, like she's fighting to get my support for her child.
And
So in real life,
there are a lot of kids that DMX left who need support. But
right.
but you know, I'm gonna tell you one thing that people never wanna talk about, right?
Mhm.
But I don't think that DMX was married to that particular
No, he
person.
wasn't.
Yeah, see, so that causes an issue, right?
Right.
So first of all, anytime you have children, and let's step DMX aside for 1 second. I'm going to get back to him. But anytime you have children with someone else, and then you decide, for instance, to get married to a next person, you need to make sure that your kids with the prior person are taken care of. And the best way to do that is to deal with what Kanye said in one of his songs. That's a whole other issue too. But what Kanye said in one of his songs, we want prenup. You have to get a prenuptial agreement if you're going to go into another marriage, especially because that marriage brings along with it all kinds of legal entitlements, which will minimize your prior child's entitlement to share in your estate. And if you do not have a will, that person that you marry is going to have a large amount of interest in your estate. Even if you do have a will, that person that you marry has the same kind of interest if you tried to disinherit them, because you cannot disinherit a spouse by a will in New York or New Jersey. They have a legal entitlement to a floor amount of your assets, and it can be substantial. Half plus 50,000, a third plus 50,000, depending upon the state. So now here's your new spouse with half of your assets plus some more. And what about Johnny and Samantha? They're picking up crumbs. So when you are getting married, that prenup is a big deal, because the prenup will do certain things that a will cannot do, such as allow you to disinherit your new spouse, or allow you to minimize the amount of money that the new spouse could get, so that it's below what a state would normally give that person. Now, when you have a situation where you have multiple children and you're not married, first of all, the partner isn't entitled to anything under state law. You're not a family member. So if you didn't wife the person, you didn't make the person your husband, they're not entitled to anything individually. Now, if you have a will, you can disinherit them all you want because they weren't entitled to anything by law. But now you have to figure out how it is that you're going to take care of these children. Most people like to ignore wills. If you're going to ignore a will, at least have what we call non-testamentary property, which is property which passes outside of a will, such as POD, pay on death on your bank accounts, right? You have 3 kids. Make sure all 3 of those kids are the payees on death on that bank account. If you have a pension, elect the children as survivors or beneficiaries of the pension. Same thing with your 401k account from your employer. These are instruments that will pass outside of the will so long as you have a beneficiary. Sometimes people, they sign up for the 401k and they never put a beneficiary. You'd be surprised how many people never put a beneficiary, never update the beneficiary. They have kids and then the beneficiary is still their mom, these types of things. Yeah. And the one thing that you have to be careful of is that when you put beneficiaries who are minors, now if you leave and you did not designate a custodian for that beneficiary, you have another issue. So make sure that you plan to the fullest extent that you're able to. Put a beneficiary, put a contingent beneficiary in the event that the child is still a minor, somebody that's trusted. Don't have it be that this little kid is up here fighting for their entitlements or fighting up against a person who really doesn't have their best interests at heart.
Right. As you mentioned, 401k and pension, a lot of times I notice on the forms, they always ask if you're married or remarried. So does that your spouse, future spouse, entitled to that or your past?
So I'm going to tell you a little story. I have a case right now where my client, she's in her 70s and her ex-husband is also in his 70s. They got married they got divorced when I was 9, right? Okay. So I'm looking at the index number and I said, oh my goodness, they filed for divorce when I was 6. They got divorced when I was 9. Okay, I'm 40, I'll be 42. All right, that's a long time. So she comes and she says, you know what? I just realized that I'm entitled to his pension. And I'm looking at the index number. Like, ma'am, why are you here now? This is 2021 at that time. What's going on? Oh yeah, I found out my ex retired in 2003. And I'm saying to myself, okay. She said, well, I tried to get the pension information from his former employer and they said he cashed out the entire pension. So I said, okay, look, here's the deal. You were entitled to whatever he accrued from the date you said I do to the date somebody filed for divorce. All right. So whatever accrued in that time divided by 2. Okay. In New York, we call it a Majowskis percentage or coverture or whatever. Okay. I said, but the problem is that it's 20 some odd years later, right? Somebody's child has become a whole adult in the time that you've waited since this man retired. So we did our research. The judge said, counsel, why are you here? It's almost 30 years later. I don't know why you're doing this. I call it noise because once I know that the law is on my side, everything else is noise. So I said, well, judge, the contract is what it is. She's entitled. Let me go ahead and do my discovery, which is where I send out subpoenas and things like that to the employer. Sent out the subpoena. The employer said, oh yeah, Mr. X took $617,000 in distribution. So I do my calculation and I find out my client is entitled to 148 grand. Mr. X remarried. His new wife signed for him to take the money out because his new wife had a monthly pension entitlement based upon his entitlement. But my poor client is sitting over here, you know, not realizing that all of this money is really gone. So yes, there's an entitlement, and you cannot sit on your rights, because this woman, she's in a situation where I'm discounting her because we have friends in common and things like that. So I'm doing her a favor. But suppose she didn't have me to do that. How would she have paid in order to get an attorney to get her into court and to subpoena documents and this, that, and the other? Let's not put ourselves in that position. Once you know you have the entitlement, go ahead and exercise your rights to the entitlement. But yes, she has an entitlement to the pension, and so does his new wife.
Wow, so they got to split that up.
And it's going to be interesting because he's already spent a lot of the money, and it's going to be very interesting. There's going to be liens on houses probably, and all kinds of. And when you're in your 70s, who needs to be bothered with this kind of thing?
Correct.
You know, who wants to be bothered? Because, you know, I'm going to be coming after houses and stuff like that. People should really do the right thing and do it sooner than later. But yes, you're entitled. Same thing with the 401k. You know, the only part that is not marital is money that was there prior to you getting married, and money that was there after somebody filed for divorce. The other thing that people don't realize that they're entitled to is survivorship benefits. So when your spouse is talking to you about retiring, and they say, oh, baby, you know what? We're going to get $300 more if I don't elect you as a survivor. Let's go ahead and get the $300 more. Tell them no, babe, it's going to cost us another $300. Okay, no problem. Because when that spouse who has the retirement benefit closes their eyes, if they do not elect you as a survivor, you're out. So if you're the spouse who never made any income and you don't have any retirement benefits, when your spouse closes his or her eyes, there goes the pension benefit.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
And again, let's say that you're in a second marriage or whatever. The best way to prevent against that is to march yourself down to your local friendly lawyer and get yourself a prenup. Quite frankly, especially in the Black community, you know, we don't like to talk about a couple things: death, and we don't like to talk about prenuptial agreements.
Right.
And quite frankly, you know, if you're dealing with somebody who really is going to not want to marry you because you want to protect yourself or your kids, you probably need to keep looking.
Yeah, I was about
Can you
to
say that again,
a lot of
please?
times-
I said if you're dealing with somebody who's not going to be okay with the fact that you want to protect yourself and your kids, then you should keep looking. It's not the right person. Maybe they're a buddy. Maybe they're a friend with benefits, but they're not your spouse.
Right, because a lot of times they say if you don't want to sign it, you know, as women, you're considered a gold digger. You just wanted the money, you know, but they don't understand you have to protect yourself because anything could happen, you know.
Anything can happen. Anything can happen. And you know what people say is, okay, well, you know, if you have a pension benefit, some people will try to say, oh, I don't need to elect you as a survivor. I'll just get you a life insurance policy. Okay, but let's say you develop some kind of ailment, and now when you go to re-up the policy, you're no longer entitled. Okay, so now the person has not elected you as a survivor. They can't get insurance, and you're still in the same situation. Not a smart place to be in. Not a smart place to be in.
Wow. You know, looking from the outside, there's just so many things that we don't know. You know, we just take for granted, like, okay, we get married, don't look at all these things that you just mentioned.
You know what it is too, and I find that especially women, and I could say it because I'm a woman, but I find that especially women, you know, we get married and we think about the party and we think about the dress and this, that, and the other. But it's you know, marriage is more than that. It's you're not gonna have fun times every single day, and so you really have to be planning for what it is. You have to be preparing for the marriage, not necessarily for the wedding.
I have a question. So no one goes into a marriage thinking is not going to last. So what kind of conversation are you having if you're going to get married in your 20s, 30s, or 40s?
Listen, if you go into you say if they're going into the marriage thinking that it's not going to work long term.
I don't think that people going to marry still. What if?
I think some people do.
Okay.
Some people do. Some people do. Some people know at the back of their head, you know what? This might not be it. Again, especially women. And they don't want to call off the wedding. And they don't want to, embarrass the family. And they don't want to. Some people do. But
you're absolutely right, because the thing is also being a woman is the pressure. When are you going to get married? So they just get married just to satisfy the family. And well, that is not my ideal partner. But to take the pressure off me, I'm going to get married. I'm going to have that baby. Everybody else except me wants.
Mm-hmm. Or they think that they're not going to find nobody else. Time is running out. I'm not going to find anybody. I'm not going to find anybody. That goes down to a self-esteem issue. But it's so many of us. Oh no, this is what I can get. So,
So
I represent women. I represent women who the spouses were beating them before they got married. Okay, if you're getting beat before you get married, this is not going to change, most likely, right? This is most likely not going to change. But I'll tell you, when you talk about, in your 20s and 30s, first of all, I got married. I was in my late 20s. I think I was 29 when I got married. And the conversation is very different when you're in your 20s and you're building. Because when you're in your 20s and you're building, you're not thinking, you say, oh, we're both in the same, we don't need no prenup. We don't need to, if whatever we build, right? Okay. But in your 30s or your 40s, when he or she or they aren't pulling their weight and you're the one going out to work every day, you come home, the house ain't clean, no food, nothing is, there's right? Now you're like, well, damn, I wish I would have had this conversation, because I think that a lot of people fail to talk about what their expectations are overall. And it's a lot of times it's because they don't want to have the uncomfortable conversation. But sometimes life is about getting uncomfortable in order for you to push forward.
But I think as women, go ahead, Eva.
I was saying I have a question. It's a family-oriented question, not matrimonial. I have a friend that she's having problems with her ex-husband in terms of the divorce. A lot of divorces, they require that the spouse have insurance on the kids. Yes. So he is pulling the power move because the insurance is in his name. And I told her she needs to go see an attorney because the school is requesting that, children go for counseling. And every time she finds someone, he is causing problems and canceling it. And I told her to go see an attorney. So how would you advise somebody like that? Or what should I tell her? Give her your number. What?
So we're talking about health insurance, correct?
We're talking about, yes, that he is more or less pulling it or playing, how can I put it? He is more or less canceling appointments where his son needs counseling. Mm-hmm. And rather than letting him get the counseling, he keep creating scenarios of he don't like this person, he don't like that one. And he's telling the counselors that he's not going to pay them. So then they no longer want to see the kids because he's threatening to pull the policy and not pay. And I told her he can't do that because by law, he's required to keep the insurance and she needs to go find an attorney because he's abusing it.
Yeah, she needs to file an enforcement petition. And she probably also needs to, sorry, I'm just going to adjust myself. She probably also needs to ask the court to change whatever order they have in place that allows him to have joint legal custody with respect to the child's medical situations, medical decisions. She needs to have final say with regards to that, and that should incorporate cover the issue of mental health, because he's not only going to do it with respect to mental health, he would probably do it with respect to other things too, because he has nothing else better to do. This is how he gets his power, his jollies. So she needs to, those are the two things that she needs to do. And then she also needs to make sure that she herself gets a copy of the card, or the card coming directly to her. The judges can issue orders. They're called qualified medical support orders that direct the insurance company to send documents directly to the parent, who is the custodial parent. So you know, she needs to put things like that into play. And then if it were me, and he continued to misbehave, I would ask the court for sole legal custody. That's extreme. But
so do you take on new clients, or do you do consultation? Because I'm talking to her, but my ears are bleeding, because I'm like, you know, let me just find somebody that can direct her, that she may follow through, because I've been the one she's been leaning on and crying to for the past several years. And I'm like, listen, you need to do something about it, because as he get older, the situation is going to get worse.
Isn't that something, you know, it's amazing that, you know, people will lament in their own stuff. And it could be with anything. It could be with anything. They'll lament in their own stuff. And we get into this mindset of being defeated. And, you know, all we can do is just keep complaining and complaining about it. And so she needs to start taking action instead of complaining. Sometimes we just have to take responsibility for our own stuff. And in a way, she's kind of emboldened him to do what he's doing, because she's been letting him get away with it for so many years. But yeah, she's more than welcome to contact my offices. I'm the only one with that name. So if she Googles me, she'll find a link to my calendar and everything she can get on the calendar. And
Can you put it in the chat so that way I can share it later on?
Sure, I sure will.
Okay, great.
Thank you. I appreciate this, Spice Queen, because I was like, I try, you know, I always try to help people, and it just gets to a point where I can only say so much, because if you're not willing to follow the advice, I'm just being quiet. But maybe knowing that, hey, here's an attorney, call her. You know, she might feel enlightened to do what she's supposed to do.
Yeah, and sometimes it takes time. You know, people will come into my office, and I will say to them, you're just not ready to get divorced. I mean, this is not her situation, but I'll say, you know, you're just not ready to do this. You're just not ready to get divorced. And to be honest with you, people who are not ready to get divorced, or they're not ready to move on and be their own advocates, they are not ideal clients. They have more difficult divorces because they're still emotionally attached. Look, a good divorce is one that occurs when both parties have respect for each other, but they realize that after dealing with the issues of their kids, everything else is business. Everything else is business.
I agree. Thank you.
Yeah.
I agree. That's true.
Wow. Good information. What I was going to say before is that a lot of women, when you talk about not having the conversation, they are afraid. Women are afraid to bring things that they're unpleasant to them, or they're not satisfied with, to a man, because they're afraid that he's going to leave. If I, you know, say I don't like this, he disagrees, or find that you're combative, or so women suffocate that because they're afraid that the man's going to leave.
That's true. But you know, that is very true. But I'm going to tell you that a lot of men feel the same way.
Really?
A lot of men feel the same way. There are men who stay in sexless marriages, 10, 15 years, don't say anything, because, you know, they too don't want to be by themselves. It's very interesting, the dynamic. But I'll tell you, you know, more women file for divorces than men.
Yeah, because women are bolder. Men are silent.
Women, and not only that, you know, usually women are the ones who experience more health related issues by being in a toxic or non-functioning marital relationship, because of the compartmentalization effect, right? That we don't have. So, you know, there's a lot of, and I find that I really do find that when men file for divorce, for the most part, the stereotype of them not being concerned about what happens to their wives and, oh, well, you know, she could fend for herself. The stereotype is generally, for at least my clients, not true. The reverse is usually true. I had a client fire me one time. This woman, I got her so much money, it was ridiculous. I was looking to marry her husband myself if this was the kind of money he was going to be giving out. And it was a situation where the woman, she was about 49 years old, so young. She hadn't worked in a number of years. Her youngest child was going to college. The man offered her $9,500 a month, a $1,500 car allowance. He was wealthy. He made good money. $1,500 car allowance. Now, I'm a car person, so I was just figuring out. I was like, I don't even spend that for my car, and I work hard. I said, wow, what kind of car could I get for this kind of money? She fired me. She said it wasn't enough money because she thought that her husband was supposed to take care of her for the rest of her life. But your husband is not your daddy. Well, maybe in certain situations. But in this situation, your husband is not your daddy. And so, you know, when I remember I was pregnant with my youngest at the time, and I came back from having him, and I came back to court. She was now on her 5th attorney. I was her 3rd attorney. She was now on her 5th attorney. And she saw me in court, and I'm bopping. I said, oh, hey, how you doing? You know, no hard feelings. She said, Sherilyn, why didn't you fight to keep me as your client? Why didn't you fight? I said, listen, you know, when you don't want me, it's like a marriage. If don't fight for nobody that don't want you. They don't want you, they don't want you.
Correct.
She said, I wish I would have stayed with you because she ended up getting $4,300 a month from this man, which still, I mean, look, give me the 43, I will take it. But can you imagine, because of the sense of entitlement, she walked away from all she had to do was get up every day. All she had to do was breathe, and she would have gotten $11,000 a month. I could not imagine.
She wanted to live the lifestyle that she's accustomed to.
The lifestyle that she's accustomed to, and that's no longer the law in New York, especially. That lifestyle that you're accustomed to, that is no longer the law. And people, that's greed. That's greed. And I mean, you know, all she had to do was let me. I like I said, I would have married a husband and taken 11,000. I could have been his second ex-wife.
So this type of situation that you come across, the client seeks you out, and it will be good that the man and woman come to you, and then you will hash out how you think it should go.
So if you mean if the couple comes to me at the same time?
Yes, they can see, one, the emotional, everything is going, like you said, now it's basically, all right, so the kids either older or out, and it's just not happening. Then they seek you out, or they have been referred to you. So your consultation will be that way?
Most of my clients come by referrals, but I generally only see one client. So I either see the husband or the wife, or one spouse or the other, if they don't go by those designations. One spouse or the other, right? Because for me to sit with them together is actually a conflict of interest, right? Because even when they want to have an amicable relationship during their divorce and they want to have a happy divorce, at some root, they have differing interests. The interests are divergent, and they're self-preservation type interests, whether it's with respect to their assets or their cash, right? And so when they see somebody together, that's generally because they've chosen to do mediation. And they'll see a neutral mediator together to try to hash out the issues that they have with each other. Now, I am a mediator, I just choose not to mediate. And I'm going to tell you why. I like to have somebody to advocate for. I like to have, as they say, like a pony in the race. I like to be like, yeah, okay, I'm on this side and this is the right. And there's nothing wrong with mediation. If you can mediate your case, I think that it's an optimal thing to do.
Mhm.
But what you have to be careful of in mediation is realizing that the mediator doesn't represent either one of you.
Right.
That person does not represent your spouse. They do not represent you. Now, there are some mediators who thereafter will go ahead and file paperwork and say, oh, I represent the plaintiff or I represent the defendant. I consider it to be unethical. But when you have a mediated agreement, you must seek out an attorney after that mediated agreement is drafted. Don't sign anything until you sit down with an attorney. I'll give you an example. I have a case now. This case is so many years old. It's ridiculous at this point. The parties are already divorced. The wife had a very lucrative business, which was an MLM, a multi-level marketing business. And she rose to the point where she was making almost $500,000 a year. I don't know how she did it, but she was making high 400,000 range. And she had agreed before she got to that point, when she was still at like 60 some odd thousand, she agreed in a mediation agreement that she and her spouse would continue to own the business together, and he would get 30% of the profits. Comes turn out that the man didn't want to run the business anymore. But guess what? He's still looking for his 30% because the contract said 30%. So had she sat down with an attorney, the attorney would have said, wait, hold up. So you're going to run the business together. What's going to happen? You all are getting divorced. And that was a domestic violence influenced situation. And an attorney worth their salt would have said, oh no, number one, you can't continue to run the business with somebody who's abusive. Number two, you can't just give them profits ad infinitum, which means into infinity, right? Into eternity. You can't do that. And so even though the mediator was a divorce attorney and a pretty well respected one in my community, these people still ended up with disagreement. And so now we're in court. Actually, we've actually gone to the appellate division, thankfully won the appeal, and it's now back down in the Supreme Court for the Supreme Court to determine what should happen. So yeah, you must be careful. A lot of times people want to run into a mediator. Oh, it should be cheaper. It should be cheaper. It should be quicker. Sometimes that's not the case. And even if it is, you always want to double check with a lawyer.
Correct. Yeah, that would make
Did
sense.
I answer your question, Michael?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right.
So, Michael, you're getting all the facts here now. No, but that would make sense. It just seems like common sense, which is not common. We're not working it together. Why do you feel you're entitled to anything?
But like you said, common sense is not common. But the thing about it is that people just want it to be easy, and they say, it was so easy to get married. I had to pay this $25, and then I stand up in front of somebody, say a few words, and now I want to get divorced, and I'm doing all of this. And the reason why is, Maybelline Ephraim used to say, think deep before you leap. People don't think deep before they leap. They thinking with all other kind of body parts and all other kind of brains, and it's not the right person.
Correct. Yeah, well, they said that it's cheap to get married, but divorce is expensive.
Yeah, that's why people say it's cheaper to keep her. I'll tell you, there's some people I tell them, look, don't get divorced, just leave it. If I have a husband who says, my wife and I have been separated for 20 years, and I'm just about to get my pension, and this, I said, oh, she's not bothering you? Okay, let it stay. If she's not bothering you, just let it stay, because it's not going to be worth it for you to do all of this stuff.
But as you say that is so prevalent with Caribbean people. They would live in one in the Caribbean, one here, they'll never get divorced. And they'll go on and have separate lives.
Separate life, and could still live in the same house.
And
separate lives. I remember a couple like that in Brooklyn, where my mom belonged to this lodge in Brooklyn. And I would say, how come they've never, she sat in the back seat. They never really together at any of the functions. My mom said, no, when you get older, you'll understand. And I sure did. I understood. But they made it work somehow. They were still able to be around each other, and
and they have children here, 3 or 4, though you said this is my, oh yes, and all the kids get along. It's in my
Mhm,
family. So my dad was a Rolling Stone. So,
mhm,
we got,
mhm. Yeah.
but we all, you get along. They somehow make it happen.
You know what? Because at the end of the day, this is the thing that this is the thing that I never understand. Once there's no abuse and emotional abuse and things like that. In my family, at the end of the day, it's always Uncle Bobby. It's Auntie this. Even when people
Correct.
get divorced, because especially if you have children, you
Correct.
have to
Yeah.
you have to give some sense of normalcy to the kid. You don't have to be in love with each other anymore. But how do I look, telling my sister-in-law, for instance, oh no, you can't see my child, you can't see. But how do I look doing that? That my child deserves the love and attention of as many people who have her best interests at heart as possible.
That's correct. Yeah. Yes. Definitely.
So now you're talking about
And
celebrities. I mentioned Kanye. Listen, Kanye needs to get off of the social media. I don't know what's going on, but I'm gonna tell you. I don't know what's going on with him, but I'm gonna tell you. When you have cases like that, where people are blowing up each other on social media, and they decide they're gonna move across the street, and they're coming up with scopes and this, that, and the other, trying to figure out what's going on. Those things always come back to bite you. And
that's dangerous.
I heard that he had purged his social media. But guess what? Purging your social media does not erase the metadata. Attorneys will still find whatever it is that you post.
Whatever. Right. Kanye, ever since his mom died, he was never the
Uh,
same.
Never the
And
same.
he needs serious, serious help.
Yeah,
He's a walking time bomb. And I wish
yeah,
he would get the help that he needs.
yeah. I agree
I
with you.
mean, people are making fun of him, but it's serious.
It's
It's very
serious.
serious.
No, it's very
Yes.
serious. It's very serious. And and that's another thing, that impacts matrimonial cases, where his mother had the plastic surgery and this, that, and the other, and died.
Right.
The amount of people who edit themselves, especially where I practice on Staten Island, with who getting injections and who getting the nose job and who getting the boobs and this, that, the amount of people who edit themselves and say that they're doing it in the name of keeping their spouse and their marriage alive is really,
You
it's
know, but
awe-inspiring.
right. But you know
Same
what? The
issue.
thing is, the thing is that they don't, they won't say, but a lot of times though, the spouse is pushing them to do it, but he'll never say it. That's indirectly. Um, it's same thing like with us with our hair. They complain. Like I know for me, like guys complain about the weave but yet if your hair is natural, why don't you do something to your hair? So they kind of diminishes you in one way, right? And you go and you try to say, okay, let me change my hair. He's going to like that, especially if it's your husband. And you make all those changes. And then what they do, still criticize you. So damn if you do and damn if you don't. That's why
I would
self-love
love to
is
hear
so
what the men
important,
think.
right?
I
But,
would love to hear
I
what the
think
men think about that, because
no, that's why I mean, me being a sexologist, a lot of the coaches, when I coach a lot of people, that is what they say. They're doing some women doing so much to please that man. I have some of my clients say, when we out, he's always eyeballing the woman with the nice butt. So what you gonna do? Because you're mentally thinking about these,
right,
oh, that's what he likes.
right, right, right,
Oh,
right.
he's looking at her chest. So you go, if you don't have it, you try to do all these things to please somebody that you will never satisfy in those aspects, because he's still going to be
Hmm.
wondering. And,
Can
that
we get an
applies to
answer?
women too.
Can we get an answer from the men? She said she want to hear the men, men's side. No one's saying anything.
Well,
I like talking truth.
Michael's enjoying it over there. I'm watching Mike. He's just laughing away.
I am.
Mike knows I'm speaking truth.
Husbands. He's just enjoying himself over there. You know?
Look at that smile. Look at that. No, you don't have a smile. You have a grin.
A whole grin.
That is because I don't view life from that perspective for the most part. I'm not a believer that feels that a woman or a man should subjugate themselves to another person. You are who you are. Yes, I may be married to you, I may be in love with you, but if I see something that catches my attention, I can still look at it. But it doesn't mean that I am looking at from you to change yourself to meet what I look at. The same thing with the grass. You're on your side of the fence, the grass looks greener over there. If you're trying to get over there, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But because I look at the grass, doesn't mean that I want to go over there. I married you, and if I have a problem with you, then I should solve that or go leave you alone and go about my business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm not one of
Maybe
those
you was
people
looking at the grass too hard.
Maybe.
You know,
Maybe.
I agree with you. I don't think there's anything wrong with a man looking at something beautiful. Look, God created a whole bunch of beautiful creatures. Look, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. A lot of women have this. Oh, you looking? Oh, I mean,
Correct.
you know, we all have eyes.
That's correct.
So,
We all look.
Right. I always
absolutely.
say that if I'm with somebody and nobody else look at them, I would think something wrong with them. Somebody's supposed to find you attractive. You're supposed to get some eyeballs. What you do when you get those eyeballs is different, you know?
Right.
But
Right,
other
absolutely.
people are supposed to find you attractive.
Absolutely.
Man, I'm
And
sorry.
and sometimes you'll find that some person will put you on the spot. Oh, do you think she's beautiful? And you're like, well, what do I say now?
Okay. But Mr. I've been with men that we do that. I said, don't you look good? And they would say, well, what you think about him? I mean, if you with
Right.
somebody that you have that relationship and they trust is very important. Where you can have that, hey, because there's always going to be somebody out there who looks better than you. People may not
Absolutely.
agree or admit it, but there's always going to be.
Yeah.
But
Right.
the thing is, what you saw in me that makes a difference over the person that may look better than me. You know?
Absolutely. That's why I married you. I'm with you, not with them. If I want to be not with you, then I'll go and look over them.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question in that if a man and woman will refer to you, how do you take one side or the other?
This happened this week, actually. And so I generally, so this is how the ethics works. If somebody consults with me, I can't represent, and let's say the wife consults with me, and then the husband calls me. This is what happened this week. The wife consulted with me on Tuesday, and I think the husband called me yesterday. And the husband was referred by a former client of mine who I represented in his divorce. And my client person called me and she said, oh my goodness, you know, you wouldn't believe. I said, so what's going on? She said, oh, the husband called. I said, well, listen, let the referral partner know. I'm so sorry. I'm not able to take the case, right? Now, the only person, because I'm essentially, even though the wife has not retained me, she has developed an attorney-client relationship with me, ethically. And so I cannot represent her husband unless I disclose the fact that the wife has consulted with me, go back to the wife and say, do you mind if I represent him? Now, I never do that. I never do it. And I'm going to tell you why. You never know what kind of position you put somebody in when you disclose that their spouse has been speaking to you. You just never know. And so I personally will either choose to represent the person who first saw me or nobody at all. Right?
That's the safest way.
What'd you say?
That's the safest way to do it.
Correct. Yeah.
It's the safest thing to do because, you know, I need my license. These little kids, I got these little kids and they eat. So I just rather not. Now, in that particular situation, usually I say, I have my staff say, oh, we have a conflict. But in that situation, I said to myself, you know what? If they say even the word conflict, the wife may be in a problem. The wife may be in danger. And so I don't. So the good thing about it is that the person has a court date coming up on Friday, tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday, right? Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm getting ready to go on vacation. So she was able to say, oh, Miss Dow's not available. Miss Dow's going to be on vacation. So that was good. But in most situations, I will go with the person who consulted with me first. So I don't even have a choice to make, you know, even if I say, oh, but I like the person, because, you know, attorneys are people too. We just people. So I much rather work with somebody who I can get along with. Right. And that's a key thing. You know, people say, oh, I'm going to hire the nastiest attorney. Even I can't get along with them. Don't. It will be a nightmare because some of these attorneys, they take these cases as though they're their cases. And even though you say to yourself, oh, well, you know, they really care. Okay, that caring can go into psychosis real quickly. You know, I've had cases where the attorney on the other side is following the spouse and putting trackers on cars. I've had those cases. You know, those are the people where you're like, okay, you've done too much. This profession is no longer for you. Okay. Right. You need to phone a friend because you're doing way too much, you know? But if it's a situation where I say, oh boy, I would have liked that person who called me last, I would have liked to work for them more. I just don't work for either one of them.
Right. That makes sense. That makes sense. You know, I've had similar situation too with the husband and the wife. And if you can't, with me, is either we do it together, but I'm not going to do her and then you separate. If you want to come together as a couple, then I'm okay with that. But either that or none. I do the same thing. Find somebody else who would accommodate, you know.
Exactly. The same thing.
It puts you in a bad situation.
It puts you in a bad situation. And especially when you have a license to protect, you know, at the end of the day, some people will do some stuff that's really out there. And as a black professional, I tell people, I don't even care. I tell white people all the time, look, I am a speck in a sea of snow. They are going to see me moving. Y'all, they can't see at all. There's so many of y'all. But me, I tell people all the time, I'm so sorry, my license. Nope.
Right. And the thing is that they're more privileged than you, so you lose yours and they'll maintain theirs.
They'll still be,
Correct. So
not at all.
We have to always protect us at all costs.
And you know what the other thing is? Doing the right thing. And you know what it is too? You know, Black people need to, when they're dealing with marriage and family, Black people really should hire Black attorneys. Black attorneys will try to you know, you have this adage, especially when you grow up in the States, oh, find you a Jewish lawyer. And I find it to be hysterical because at the end of the day, who do you think is going to care more about you? The person that looks like you or this other person? Now, they may be ethical. But you got to be very, very careful about that. There's a gentleman named The Lead Attorney. He's on YouTube. And he was talking about this phenomenon with I can't remember her name, but she had hired, you know, these white attorneys. And she is espoused, oh, I got these Jewish attorneys and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, okay, sis, bro. But at the end of the day, they're not you. And so we deal with each other differently. When I deal with a Black family, I'm dealing with them in a way that minimizes as much as possible ACS involvement, DCPP involvement, because unfortunately, our children are the ones who are more likely to be taken out of the homes.
Correct.
Right?
May I say something? I appreciate what you're saying. I've been on both sides. So it's kind of hard And I appreciate you being a woman of ethics, doing what you do. But I have been on the other side where the counterpart being Afro-American did not take that position.
That's unfortunate.
They too busy trying to please the other side. So you can get both sides of the coin, you know, and so that's the hard thing for Afro-Americans altogether, because we are faced with our own side going against us.
Well, that's
And
true.
so therefore, you don't know what to do, because you go to the Jewish person because you would think that they this and that, but you want to go to your own, but your own don't treat you right also. So you have to know for yourself. And that's where the Bible comes in. You know, you got to have that wisdom, you know, and you got to speak the word for yourself. And so it comes to everything in life as well. You have to do your homework. And so I appreciate you being a woman of ethics coming on tonight and saying what you're saying, because I appreciate everything you say, because I know you're speaking truth. But me being from law enforcement, I done seen on both sides. And I sat inside the jury room and I'm sitting there looking like, you didn't tell little Billy that, but you're telling Jaheim that. And I see it all the time, and it's not fair. So it's hard, because we as people of color, we always have to fight for everything that we get. And we are never given a fair chance, you know? And it's so sad that even when you want a fair chance, you don't know if it's fair or not, because people always come against us. And so I just had to say that, because what you're saying is so true. And you want to go to your Afro-American because that's who you want to support. But I found with that also, and being a homeowner, they're the ones that screw me, because they always trying to overbill. They don't want to work. They don't do what they're supposed to be doing when they're getting paid. And it's a problem. So not to say what you're saying is not accurate. I'm just saying that there's other sides of that also. But I thank you for being a unique person in your field and a woman of excellence and ethics, because everything you said tonight shows that you are a person of ethics. And I appreciate that, because I honor that, because I look at that first and foremost. I see where your heart is and I see where your ethic is. And if you're not a person of character, then I don't mess with you, because I don't spend my money on people that don't care about me. And I don't care what you're doing. So I thank you.
That's the bottom line, I think. I think you're right.
Yeah,
I think that is the bottom line. You have to figure out whether the person is really for you or not.
Absolutely.
And if you start seeing them doing craziness, then
you walk away from them.
You gotta walk away, no matter what their racial makeup is.
Right. Because sometimes it's like, oh, let's see. By the time let's see, if things way out of control, and to try to get it back, it's difficult, and you're spending even more money than you started out or intended to.
Man, I'm sorry.
Sometimes you can't get it back.
Yep,
True, definitely.
Just to piggyback on that real quick, I use a Jewish company for real estate. Man, I was so teed off about these people. She charged me so much money. I said, you know what? You haunted me for 2 years. I went with you, and this is the contract you doing with me. I said, you know what? You don't ever have to worry about me again. I look at that contract. She charged me for so many things. So you got people that's corrupt in all areas. But
absolutely.
I also,
when you have. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I said when people hunting you down, you have to think twice about that. Because if you come to me once, twice, leave me, let me make my decision. If you're chasing me, I automatically think something is wrong with you.
But she came highly recommended from a real estate company. No, I'm just saying that you're right.
No, I understand.
You're right. But like I said, I was just like, here go the Jewish company, everybody pumping up, and knowing them for a while, I'm thinking, okay, they're gonna do right. And here she comes. I'm like, okay.
Wow. And you have to be so careful when it's with real estate, and I mean anything. You have to be careful about real estate, criminal, and all of that stuff. You have to be very careful, and you have to look. Some people the person can come highly recommended, and XYZ person had a great experience with them, and when you deal with them, it's a whole nother story. Who have the best referrals with respect to litigation and things like that? People who work in the courthouse. Because they see this person and their performance day in and day out.
Correct.
Mhm.
I agree with you. I agree. As a former
That's
law
definitely
enforcement, I
true.
agree with you. Because I used to
Mhm.
sit back here in the jury room and with the SMH shaking my head.
Mhm. Mhm. Some of the behavior is amazing. Some of the
Yes,
behavior
it
is amazing.
is.
And I will say, as a Black attorney, I was talking to another Black attorney about this a few weeks ago, and he's moving out of practicing law, and he said, you know what, it's just too hard these days. And he was talking about being a Black attorney in court and dealing with some of the adversaries and some of the microaggressions that we deal with. I had a situation in a case that I'm on trial with in front of a minority judge in Brooklyn. And my adversary wrote me something and says, well, can't you read? And I had to remember I was a Christian, number one. Then I had to remember that I didn't want to elevate my blood pressure, number two. and that I couldn't give the person power. But there's a lot of Black attorneys suffering from mental health issues, et cetera, because of these microaggressions that are going on, and a lot of Black
Right.
attorneys leaving the profession.
Wow, that's sad.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it seems like not just them, all over, because no matter where we are, they just stick us. They don't let us breathe.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember who said Ruth Bader Ginsburg had some kind of quote where she was saying, you just take your knee off of our necks. And then we saw what that really looked like
Right.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
several
Yeah.
months
Yeah.
ago, right? We saw the personification of that statement.
Yeah.
And
Correct.
she wasn't talking about, about Black people. She
Any-
was talking about
Right.
women.
Right.
But yeah, all minorities can have the same, well, certain minorities, us being particular, can have that same statement, let us breathe.
Right. Correct.
Um,
Yep.
and you know what, and when you talk about marriage dynamics in the Black family, look, one of the key, probably the key foundation in society is marriage. Probably the key foundation in society, and in raising, so long as your marriage is functional, in raising whole children.
Yeah.
Marriage is the cornerstone of our society, and it's interesting to see the decline in marriage rates amongst our people, amongst Black people in this country.
Well,
Um,
it's not by design, though. I mean, it's kind of to separate us, because I always said now you hear Black women is the only one that says I don't need a man. So
that's
where's
true.
where's the black who are the Black men going to now while we say we don't need a man? We're creating a whole different dynamic. That's another uncomfortable conversation.
It's a very uncomfortable conversation, but I think it's true. Mr. Jackson, you don't think it's true?
It's another, no, it is true,
Yeah.
but it's another good conversation. I'll be ready for that
It's
one.
coming. It's
I want to
coming.
join that one. I want to join that
By the way,
one. I want to be.
listen,
I just
I
want to
thought we
listen.
hey,
was going to talk about it a little tonight. I'm listening. It's like,
okay. So, when you're coming back from your vacation, I'll make sure I schedule it then.
Okay, yeah, I'll be back
Be-
next week. I'm going to
because
St. I'll be back the week after next. I'm going to St. Thomas with my daughter for a little while, for a
nice.
few
okay.
days,
So
just to hang
yeah.
out.
So let me tell you, I have a whole list of uncomfortable conversations. It's gonna rattle some people cages, but it is what it is, and that's the only way that we'll learn.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not
Mm-hmm.
to make people uncomfortable, but to bring it in the forefront that these are the things that happening. Whether you like it or not, it's here. Some of it is definitely here to stay. It's not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
the thing about it is, it's up to us to make changes. We can't change everybody, but if we all come together and have that happy medium, there's a lot we can change.
It's true, but you have to have the recognition of the issue in the first place in order to change it. So there, that's right. You must have the
Right.
recognition. Here's our issue. And when Bill Cosby, well, let me just bring him up for this one little purpose. When Bill Cosby was talking about, our community and certain things that we needed to change, everybody started to get on him. The same thing happened with Monique recently when she was talking about Black women in the airports with the bonnets and this and the
Yes.
other on there. This There's many things that, that can be conversed about, that just are, they have their basis in pride and self-worth.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's funny you should say that, because I was thinking about the Goldberg situation, but we're not going to get into that as well.
Okay.
Oh, whoopee.
So
Oh, yes.
you had something to say?
Yes. That was interesting.
Yes, it was.
It
But we're
is
gonna
10
leave that
o'clock
alone
and and we got to do more of this. That's the only way. We have to get involved and talk about the things that affects our lives. I know I don't remember who it was, but this Chinese guy, he was asked why he doesn't like black people. He says, not that I don't like black people, but I like my people more. So I'm going to say the same things. Not that I don't like other races, but I love my people more.
Yeah, you have to love yourself. Yeah, that's the thing. It's self-love. It's about self-love.
Self-love. I preach that all the time.
Yeah.
And we have to and we have to teach our children, we have to teach our daughters self-love. But who does it
What your
come from?
son,
It comes from us. Because if we don't preach it to them on a daily basis, they're not gonna filter them to them. They're not gonna understand it. They're not gonna get it, and they're gonna allow people to mistreat them if they don't love themselves.
It has to be repetitive, because that's what they say. My daughter is 8 years old, and she's in school with a whole bunch of children who don't look like her.
Correct.
And so, she's steeped with whatever she's steeped with in school, and it's like you have to reverse it when they get home. So you have to slather them up with as much of that pride as you possibly can, because that's what they have to hold on to when they get out on their own. They have to have that
Correct.
subconscious remembrance of, oh, that's right. My subconscious mind is saying, yeah, this is not right. I need to love myself. No, I'm not putting myself in that situation, because that don't represent love. You're right. And so
Correct.
this was a great conversation. I thank you so much for including me. I am very blessed. I really am glad that you reached out to me.
I'm so thankful that you agreed. 'Cause the first time I was like, she didn't see my message. I said, I'm gonna keep trying. I'm gonna keep trying to.
I'm glad you did. I'm glad I can't miss it anymore. So I'm glad you did.
Okay. No, but I thank you so much. I'm grateful that you did join us. And as usual, I thank everybody on here, those who are watching on Facebook. Without you, there's no us. Until next time.
Next time.
cheerio.
Take care.
Good night.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.